Today we're going to be looking at how to frontside shove it better. So back in the day, I had terrible frontside shove-its. They would fly way behind me and I could barely hang on to them. And then I made a how-to video for them, which when I look back on it now, probably doesn't have the best information. And so I've decided that it's my responsibility to go back and retcon some of the things that I talked about in the old video so that I can try to teach how to do a frontside shove-it properly. Now, I wouldn't say that I have the best frontside shove-its even now, but they're certainly much more controlled and stay under me much better than before. And this is mainly because I learned how to scoop the board frontside with my back foot much better than I used to. So why does it matter that we have a more controlled frontside shove-it? Well, in certain circumstances, you might not have the room to allow yourself to jump backwards so far, and in general, having more control over your tricks is never a bad thing. The two main things I want to focus on are how to properly use your back foot and where to center your weight. So in my old video, I taught that you should be pushing down on the tail and slightly scooping the board forward while also jumping backwards laterally. Well, it turns out this was just a bad habit that I had, which caused this trick to be a lot harder. Instead, we want to focus on really popping and scooping your back foot out in front of you and jumping almost straight up and down. My foot position is still pretty much the same as it always was, with the exception that my back foot is a little less in the pocket and a little more towards the edge of the tail. This allows me to get a better pop and put more power into my scoop. For my front foot, I barely have my toes hanging off the edge of the board, and most of my weight is on the ball of my foot. The first main thing to focus on is giving the tail plenty of downward pop. This was something I neglected to talk about in my old video and instead focused solely on the scoop. When I do my frontside shove-its now, it feels more like I'm popping an ollie rather than scooping the heck out of the tail. You can practice this motion with just one foot, but it is a little hard since your other leg tends to get in the way. But the main takeaway is to start popping the tail harder and in more of a downward motion. I think that the easiest way to start practicing this would be to pop some frontside shove-its while rolling and only landing with one foot. While you start to do this, the other big thing to keep an eye on is giving the tail a kick forward with your back foot. When I do this, I almost think of kicking the board with my heel and purposely exaggerating my back foot kicking out in front of me. And by kicking your back foot out in front of you like this, it compensates for the board's natural tendency to fly behind you. The other big thing that I changed with my frontside shove-its was the positioning of my body over the board while popping. Before, I would purposely jump backwards to try to follow the board, but now with a more proper pop and scoop, we have to focus more on jumping straight up and down. Of course, there will still probably be a little bit of backwards momentum, but the better you get at this trick, the more centered the board will stay until you don't have to jump backwards at all. So combining the proper back foot pop while keeping your body straightened will hopefully get your frontside shove-its feeling a little better. You can also practice keeping them centered by doing some frontside shove-its with your back against a wall or next to a curb and trying to keep the board from going too far behind you. And if your board is hitting the wall, then you need to add more force into the pop and scoop of your back foot. Once you start to get the feeling down, you can continue to experiment with different amounts of scoop and pop to see what works best for you. So this wasn't the most in-depth guide for frontside shove-its, but it was meant to correct some of the things I had taught in the past and hopefully give you some insight on how to pop your frontside shove-its better and with more control. If you are having trouble with this trick, just know that the feeling of scooping your foot out in front of you isn't the most natural thing at first, but the more you do it, the more comfortable it'll feel. Skateboarding is hard and frustrating sometimes, but it's also fun and oh so rewarding. Anyway, I'd like to thank my wonderful Patreon pledgers for being awesome. And as always, I'd like to thank you for watching, and you can like and subscribe if you want.